and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and today we are an Angel and the Devil because we picked books with characters grappling with good versus evil. So Jill, Angel Jill, what's your first pick?
My first pick is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Ayanakan Braithwaite, if you can see that. When Kareed's dinner is interrupted one night by a distress call from her sister, Ayula, she knows what's expected of her. Bleach, rubber gloves, nerves of steel, and a strong stomach. This will be the third boyfriend Ayula's dispatched in self-defense, and the third mess that her lethal little sibling has left Kareed to clear away. She should probably go to the police for the good of the menfolk of Nigeria, but she loves her sister, and as they say, family always comes first. Until, that is, Ayula starts dating the doctor where Kareed works as a nurse. Kareed's long been in love with him and isn't prepared to see him wind up with a knife in his back. But to save one would mean sacrificing the other. So this is a black comedy novel that says blood is thicker and more difficult to get out of the carpet than water.
Oh, my. My first pick is The Book of Kilowin by Aaron Hart. This was published in 2013, and this is actually the fourth book in an acclaimed suspense series. So, what sort of book is worth a man's life? After a year away from working in the field, archaeologist Cormac Maguire and pathologist Nora Gavin are back in the bogs, investigating a 9th century body found buried in the trunk of a car. They discover that the ancient corpse is not alone. Pinned beneath it is the body of Benedict Kavanaugh, missing for mere months and familiar to television viewers as a philosopher who enjoyed destroying his opponents in debate. Both men were viciously murdered, but centuries apart. So how did they end up buried together in the bog? While on the case, Cormac and Nora lodge at Kilowin, a nearby artist colony, organic farm, and sanctuary for eccentric souls. Digging deeper into the older crime, they become entangled in high-stakes intrigue encompassing Kavanaugh's death while surrounded by suspects in his ghastly murder. It seems that everyone at Kilowin has some secret to protect. Set in modern-day Ireland, the Book of Kilowin reveals a new twist on the power of language and on the eternal mysteries of good versus evil. So check out the Book of Kilowin, or check out the beginning of the series even, by Aaron Hart.
My next one is called If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. Our narrator's days are numbered. Estranged from his family, living alone with only his cat Cabbage for company, he was unprepared for the doctor's diagnosis that he has only months to live. But before he can set about tackling his bucket list, the devil appears with a special offer. In exchange for making one thing in the world disappear, he can have one extra day of life. And so begins a very bizarre week. Because how do you decide what makes life worth living? How do you separate out what you can do without from what you hold dear? In dealing with the devil, our narrator will take himself and his beloved cat to the brink. Genki Kawamura's If Cats Disappeared from the World is a story of loss and reconciliation and of one man's journey to discover what really matters in modern life. So, cats disappeared from the world.
Fun pick. My next pick is a familiar author to all of us. This is Stephen King's fairy tale. And in this one, he goes into the well of his imagination in this spellbinding novel about a 17-year-old boy who inherits the keys to a parallel world where good and evil are at war, and the stakes couldn't be higher for their world or ours. Charlie Reed looks like a regular high school kid, great at basketball and football, and a decent student, but he carries a heavy load. His mom was killed in a hit-and-run accident when he was 10, and grief drove his dad to drink. Charlie learned how to take care of himself and his dad. Then, when Charlie is 17, he meets Howard Bowditch, a recluse with a big dog in a big house at the top of a big hill. In the backyard is a locked shed from which strange sounds emerge, as if some creature is trying to escape. But when Mr. Bowditch dies, he leaves Charlie the house, a massive amount of gold, a cassette tape telling a story that is impossible to believe, and a responsibility far too massive for a boy to shoulder. So because within the shed is a portal to another world, one whose denizens are in peril and whose monstrous leaders may destroy their own world and ours. In this parallel universe where two moons race across the sky and the grand towers of a sprawling palace pierce the clouds, there are exiled princesses and princes who suffer horrific punishments. there are dungeons. There are games in which men and women must fight each other to the death for the amusement of the fair one. And there is a magic sundial that turns back time. A story as old as myth and as startling and iconic as the rest of Stephen King's work, Fairy Tale is about an ordinary guy forced into the hero's role by circumstance, and it is both spectacularly suspenseful and satisfying, was how it was described. So if you're a Stephen King fan, check out Fairy Tale from 2022.
I feel like with moral debates, this author is very good at them. Jodi Picoult.
Definitely.
The storyteller. So in this one, the main character is 25-year-old Sage Singer. She lives in New Hampshire. A couple of years before the story began, Sage and her mother were in a car accident while Sage was driving. Sage's mother was killed in the crash, and Sage was left with a large scar across her cheek, which is a constant reminder that she was responsible for her mother's death. She's self-conscious about the car and chooses to wear her hair over her face. She works as a baker alone at night and believes she deserves a lonely life. She's in a relationship with a funeral director, Adam, who also happens to be married. And initially, she seems fine with the arrangement and allows her to live independently, and she doesn't have to worry about this man. While attending a grief group, she meets an elderly man named Joseph Weber. Joseph is widely known around town for being a kind and generous man. He and his wife lived there for 40 years, although his wife recently died. He's seen in their town as a model citizen, but he was as a longtime German teacher at the high school, as well as a baseball coach. But after they become close friends, he reveals a secret about his past. He was a Nazi commander in the Holocaust at the Auschwitz concentration camps, and he asks Sage if she will help him die. Joseph tells Sage that he committed horrific crimes and killed many people, and he asks her to help him die by suicide. And she becomes conflicted with the request and wonders which way to go. So if you want to find out which way she goes, this is the one for you, The Storyteller.
I love that book. That's one of my favorites of hers. My third pick is The Library at Mount Shar by Scott Hawkins, published back in 2015. A missing god, a library with secrets to the universe, and a woman too busy to notice her heart slipping away. Caroline's not so different from the other people around her. She likes guacamole and cigarettes and steak. She knows how to use a phone. Clothes are a bit tricky, but everyone says nice things about her outfit with the Christmas sweater over the gold bicycle shorts. After all, she was a normal American once. That was a long time ago, before her parents died, before she and the others were taken in by the man they called father. In the years since then, Caroline hasn't had a chance to get out much. Instead, she and her adopted siblings have been raised according to father's ancient customs. They've studied the books in his library and learned some of the secrets of his power. And sometimes they've wondered if their cruel tutor might secretly be God. Now, father is missing, perhaps even dead, and the library that holds his secrets stands unguarded, and with it, control over all of creation. As Caroline gathers the tools she needs for the battle to come, fierce competitors for this prize align against her, all of them with powers that far exceed her own. But Caroline has accounted for this, and she has a plan. The only trouble is that in the war to make a new god, she's forgotten to protect the things that make her human. So this was described as horrifying and hilarious, mind-blowingly alien, and heartbreakingly human. So if you're looking for a different kind of book, The Library at Mount Shar by Scott Hawkins.
The next one is The Better Liar by Tannen Jones. This was published in 2020. When a woman conceals her sister's death to claim their joint inheritance, her deception exposes a web of dangerous secrets in this addictive new thriller by fans of Gillian Flynn and Paula Hawkins. And it explores what often can lead to evil acts, which is money. Robin Voight is dead. If Leslie has arrived at her sister's cramped Las Vegas apartment just hours earlier, this had been their first reunion in a decade. In the years since Robin ran away from home as a teenager, Leslie has stayed in New Mexico taking care of their dying father, even as she began building a family of her own. But when their father passed away, Leslie received a rude awakening. She and Robin would receive the inheritance he left them together, or not at all. Now her half of the money may be beyond her grasp, and unbeknownst to anyone, even her husband, Leslie needs it desperately. When she meets a charismatic young woman who bears an uncanny resemblance to Robin and has every reason to leave her past behind, the two make a reckless bargain. Mary will impersonate Robin for a week in exchange for Robin's half of the cash. But neither realizes how high the stakes will become when Mary takes the dead woman's name. Even as Mary begins to suspect Leslie is hiding something, and Leslie realizes a stranger living in her house, babysitting her newborn son, and charming her husband, has secrets of her own, Robin's wild, troubled legacy threatens to eclipse them both. So, a little thriller in there for you.
My fourth pick is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was published in 2019. The Mayan god of death sends a young woman on a harrowing, life-changing journey in this one-of-a-kind fairy tale, which is inspired by Mexican folklore. The jazz age is in full swing, but Cassiopeia is too busy cleaning the floors of her wealthy grandfather's house to listen to any of those fast tunes. Nevertheless, she dreams of a life far from her dusty small town in southern Mexico, a life she can call her own. Yet this new life seems as distant as the stars until the day she finds a curious wooden box in her grandfather's room. She opens it and accidentally frees the spirit of the Mayan god of death, who requests her help in recovering his throne from his treacherous brother. Failure will mean Cassiopeia's demise, but success could make her dreams come true. In the company of this strangely alluring god and armed with her wits, she begins an adventure that will take her on a cross-country odyssey from the jungles of Yucatan to the bright lights of Mexico City and deep into the darkness of the Mayan underworld. So this one sounded kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The Gods of Jade and Shadow.
My last pick for today is called Amnesty by Aravind Adiga. This book is about a young illegal immigrant who must decide whether to report crucial information about a murder and risk deportation. So, Danny, formerly Dhananjaya Rat, a big long name, is an illegal immigrant in Sydney, Australia. Denied refugee status after he fled from Sri Lanka. Working as a cleaner, living out of a grocery storeroom for 3 years, he's been trying to create a new identity for himself. And now with his beloved vegan girlfriend Sonia and his hidden accent and highlights in his hair, he's as close as he has ever been to having a normal life. But one morning, Danny learns a female client of his has been murdered. The deed was done with a knife at a creek where he'd been with her before, and a jacket was left at the scene, which he believes belongs to another of his clients, a doctor with whom Danny knows the woman was having an affair. Suddenly, Danny is confronted with a choice: come forward with his knowledge about the crime and risk being deported, or say nothing and let justice go undone. Over the course of this day, evaluating the weight of his past, his dreams for the future, and the unpredictable, often absurd reality of living invisibly and undocumented, he must wrestle with his conscience and decide if he's the person without rights still has responsibilities. So, I thought that sounded interesting.
It does. My last pick is a debut novel from this gentleman. This is The Ferryman Institute by Colin Geigel, and this was published back in 2016. If you're fans of Christopher Moore, you may like this book. A ferryman for the dead finds his existence unraveling after making either the best decision or the biggest mistake of his immortal life. Ferryman Charlie Dawson saves dead people. Somebody has to convince them to move on to the afterlife. Having never failed a single assignment, he's acquired a reputation for success that's as legendary as it is unwanted. It turns out that serving as a ferryman is causing Charlie to slowly lose his mind. Deemed too valuable by the Ferryman Institute to let go and too stubborn to just give up in his own right, Charlie's pretty much abandoned all hope of escaping his grim existence. Or he had anyway, until he saved Alice Spiegel. To be fair, Charlie never planned on stopping Alice from taking her own life. That sort of thing is strictly forbidden. But he never planned on the president secretly giving him the choice to either. Charlie's not quite sure what to make of it, but Alice is alive, and it's the first time he's felt right in more than 200 years. When word of the incident reaches the Ferryman Institute's resident internal affairs liaison, Charlie finds he's in a world of trouble. But he's not about to lose the only living, breathing person he's ever saved without a fight. He's ready to protect her from internal affairs and save Alice from herself. And he's willing to put the entire continued existence of mankind at risk to do it. So it's described as a thrilling supernatural adventure packed with both wit and humor. So, The Ferryman Institute,
Nice.
a debut novel
I
by
love
Colin
debut
Geigel.
novels. So we hope we helped you find something to read if you want to debate the whole good and evil thing.
I
And
think we had some good picks this week for that. Thank you for watching. You can find our videos on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Jill puts the link on our Kimberly Public Library website. And until next time, thanks for watching. Share with us what you're reading. Bye-bye.
bye.